this. And I actually wrote it like the day before I came. So, it's entitled Taekwondo is Family. And a lot of people have touched on what I put in my paper today. So I hope I have a lot of people agreeing with me today. September 5th, 1977 was a long time ago, 35 and a half years ago to be exact. The excitement of starting something new and unique made my heart beat faster and my mind whirl with questions. I was thrilled and nervous all at the same time. Would people stare at me? Would they accept me? Other first-timers were there too, including a mother and her 3 children, Kay Bear Hines, Chris and Bo Bear, and Eric Hines Jr. The instructors at the University of Iowa Taekwondo Club, Mr. Rod Spidell and Mr. John Becker, greeted me and reassured me that the class would start slow and was all about the basics. Mr. Jung's, and I must admit that Mr. Becker's favorite thing is, no problem, no problem. No problem, no problem. And they reassured me and said, just try everything. Everyone learns at their own pace. I made it through that first class, making new friends and experiencing my first good tired from the workout. Everybody know what that means, a good tired. 3 weeks after I started Taekwondo, our class was thrilled to learn that Master Jung was going to come from Cedar Rapids to teach our class. Everyone lined up to do the warm-ups, and naturally, I was in the back with the other, can't see it. I was in the back with the other white belts. Mr. Jung took the white belts to practice step side kicks with the partner, but he sent me to the back of the class to work with Mr. Spidell. To be honest, it hurt my feelings a little to be sent away from my group and away from Mr. Jung's instruction. When it came time to practice flying front step kicks with Mr. Jung holding the focus pad, I lined up with the other students just like I had done in the other classes. Apparently, Mr. Jung didn't see me behind the taller students. When it was my turn, I keyed out loudly and started running. I think Mr. Jung said, "Wait, no," but it was too late. My crutches and I were flying down the runway. I hit the mark and took off, soaring into the air and nailing the target pad, which Mr. Jung held just above my head. I ran to take my place in line again, just like everyone else. The next time, Mr. Jung held the target even higher for me. Mr. Jung and I reached an understanding that day. Mr. Jung realized that I had a serious interest in learning Taekwondo, and I learned that Mr. Jung would push me and have expectations for me to achieve. And push me he did, all the way to black belt. He always believed in me, even when I wasn't so sure myself. That's the definition of a teacher, a master. There were many exciting times over the years. Mr. Jung would pick students to do demonstrations, and that was always fun. We did demonstrations at the mall, county fairs, churches, and civic events. If someone called and wanted a demonstration, Mr. Jung would pile as many students as he could in cars, and off we'd go on another great adventure. One of my favorite demonstrations was the halftime show at the University of Iowa basketball game. I was a student there at the time, and Mr. Jung took great delight in having me at 3'11" spar with Kay Bear, who's 6'1", and whose legs are longer than my crutches. It was an exciting venue to perform in. Other opportunities arose as well. PM Magazine did a feature at the school with Mr. Jung, including the two of us doing one-steps together. Over the years, several articles were published in Taekwondo Times and Black Belt magazine about Mr. Jung teaching me Taekwondo. To my surprise, Mr. Jung had my Black Belt paper published in the very first Taekwondo Times magazine. It was exciting to see something I wrote in a magazine with Chuck Norris on the cover. That part, it's not in. By far the most exciting adventure with Mr. Jung came when I had the opportunity to accompany him to South Korea in May. I've got 1980, but it was 81, along with 15 other students and my mother. I was so proud to be a part of the team. We had so much fun doing demonstrations and interacting with the crowds. Of course, Kay Bear and I sparred all across Korea. It was a wonderful chance to stay with Korean families and experience the Korean culture. Going to Mr. Jung's family farm near Ulsan and meeting his mother and the rest of his family was such an honor. His family treated us like family, and I loved his mother. She was so sweet to me. Traveling on buses and trains allowed us to see the beautiful countryside. Our group was also able to go to the DMZ and walk around the table into North Korea, a very solemn experience, especially in the light of today. Life marched on, and I met my future husband, David Stewart, at the first International Little People's Convention in Washington, D.C. Having sworn I would never move for a man, I have now lived in Monroeville, Alabama for 30 years, as of June 18th. Moving 1,100 miles away was exciting but very difficult. It meant leaving my immediate family behind, and it meant leaving my immediate Taekwondo family behind. After 6 months in Monroeville and missing my Taekwondo family, I called Mr. Jung and asked him if he thought I could teach a Taekwondo class on my own. I had always helped somebody else. In other words, never did it myself. Mr. Jung encouraged me by saying, "Sure, you try." So I approached the local junior college, and after the shock left his face, the dean of students agreed to let a disabled woman who uses crutches teach Taekwondo as a continuing education class. I planned to teach 2 nights a week to start with and hoped I could get at least 10 students so my class would make. Well, the first night I had 63 people show up, and half the class was shorter than me, meaning a lot of kids. It didn't dawn on me that the first Karate Kid movie had just come out. I split the class in half and taught 4 nights a week. I called Mr. Jung to tell him, and he just laughed and said, "You try." I love teaching Taekwondo, and in teaching, truly came to appreciate everything Mr. Jung embodied as a teacher. I could never be Mr. Jung, but I didn't have to be. Mr. Jung encouraged me to be Nancy Stewart and develop my own way of teaching, even though the Taekwondo goals were the same. Mr. Jung even came to Alabama twice to visit my class and teach them. It was such a privilege for my students to get to work out with him. They loved it. Another momentous event occurred on June 18th, 1986. David and I adopted a 16-month-old little girl from Korea. Ryan Stewart was born in my heart. She's 28 years old now. Shortly after Ryan arrived, my first 5 students were prepared to test for black belt. We loaded up the cars and drove 1,100 miles to Cedar Rapids for them to test for Mr. Jung and the other Korean masters. Ryan went along to meet her grandpa Jung. It was a tough black belt test, but my students all survived and did great. I was so proud of them. They helped me teach for years, and 2 of them moved on to start their own Taekwondo classes of their own. My senior black belt was Marie King. She became my right hand. I could always count on Marie. She and I also worked at the same office as social workers for the state of Alabama. About 9 months ago, Marie was diagnosed with cancer, and within 6 weeks, she passed away. I miss her terribly, but I can't be too sad, because I know she's not in pain, and she's happy in heaven. When Mr. Jung called me to tell me about the test and his retirement, the first person I thought to call was Marie. She would have understood all about the emotions I was feeling, and she would have nagged me not to wait till the last minute to write this paper and create a form, which I did. Sometimes the family has to endure loss. Needing to talk with someone, I called another one of my first group, Frank Lee. He was a teenager when he tested at the main school and is now in his 40s. Frank made me cry by telling me how much I had meant to him over the years. Not long after he started Taekwondo at 15 years old, Frank's father was tragically killed riding a 3-wheeler. Without a father, Frank started acting out and misbehaving, but not at Taekwondo. His mother came to me and asked me for my help in trying to keep Frank on the straight and narrow. We sat him down and let him know that we were going to be on the same page with him and communicate with each other regularly. It worked because Frank loved Taekwondo. In other words, he didn't want to have to get put out of Taekwondo for not behaving his mom. Eventually, Frank Oh, I don't want to skip this part. We sat him down. It worked because Frank loved taekwondo. Well, it mostly worked. One Halloween, he spray painted the neighborhood cats and dogs blue. This kid, he was tough. He was crazy. Anyway, he was fun though. Taekwondo didn't come naturally to him, but he worked hard at it and his work paid off. Eventually, Frank won the heavyweight division in the National University Games representing the University of Alabama. He traveled with USA team to Korea to train and compete. He's a successful businessman in Houston now. Marie and Frank are family, taekwondo family. I taught taekwondo for nearly 20 years in Monroeville. Over 1,000 students passed through my classes and my life. 15 achieved black belts. My students will always be a part of me, just like I will always be a part of Mr. Jung. That's family, taekwondo family. I don't get back to Iowa very often, but when I do get together with my taekwondo family, it's as if no time has passed. We may look older and in my case wider, but the feelings of love for each other and the Mr. Jung stories are the same. It has been an honor for me to be Mr. Jung's first disabled student, although he always treated me like everyone else with tough love. We have been through a lot together. My father died when I was young, and Mr. Jung became a father figure to me, like he has for many others over the years. Learning taekwondo brings people together. We depend on one another and support one another in good times and bad. For me, taekwondo means family. Sometimes we fight, sometimes we laugh, and we always work hard. And of course, Mr. Jung is right there with us, watching over us and pushing us to realize our potential. Like any parent, he wants the best for each of us. His goal is for us to succeed, and succeed we have. Mr. Jung's taekwondo family has spread all over the world. His students have moved on to create taekwondo families of their own, and their taekwondo students have gone on to create taekwondo families of their own. It's an amazing legacy, Grandmaster Jung. It has been a privilege and a source of pride for me to be a small part of your taekwondo family. Kamsahamnida, Mr. Jung.